What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean O'Malley disappointed after UFC 299 win. Sean O'Malley's display against Marlon Chito Vera in his first title defense has been hailed as his best performance to date, drawing praise from media and fans alike. O'Malley won every single round on the judges' scorecards, and Vera left the cage looking like a man who'd been beaten from pillar to post over 5 rounds. Despite the dominant nature of the victory, Vera certainly had his moments in the fight, most notably in the dying seconds when he hurt the champion with a vicious shot to the body. O'Malley was obviously hurt at the final bell and was seen limping backstage afterwards with his foot encased in a protective boot. The lack of a finish seems to have taken some of the shine off the victory, at least in O'Malley's mind. He told ESPN MMA after the bout,
"And I knew coming into this fight it was going to be a war. I mean, I say every fight's going to be a war. Usually, in the back of my head, I'm going to knock this dude out. But this fight, I really truly thought this was going to be a war. Yeah, I mean, I threw a knee up the middle and I heard it. It was disgusting, honestly. And then I think at the end of the fifth, landed another gnarly shot. But dude's is literally as tough as it gets."
Next up, Dana White reacts to Francis Ngannou fight. The parting of ways between the UFC and former heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou seems to have left a bitter taste in the mouth of Dana White. Ngannou chose not to re-sign with the UFC and instead teamed up with the PFL before openly targeting boxing matches with the likes of Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Ngannou's wishes came true when he secured his pro boxing debut against Fury last October, losing narrowly by split decision. Last week's fight with Anthony Joshua, however, was an unmitigated disappointment for Ngannou. He was utterly outclassed by the British boxer and knocked out in devastating fashion in the second round. Speaking at the UFC 299 post-fight press conference, White didn't pass up the opportunity to stick the knife into Ngannou.
Yeah, I mean, going into the Fury fight, if Fury trained for the fight and didn't show up and, look like he ate Tyson Fury, that's probably the way that fight would have ended too. I mean, listen, the crossover, you know how I feel about crossovers into boxing, and that's how they end, just like that.
White has repeatedly said that Ngannou left the UFC as he was afraid to face Jon Jones. And since the Cameroonian left the promotion, White has continued to belittle his foray into professional boxing. It remains to be seen what move Ngannou will make next. If he decides to stay in boxing, the rematch with Fury or a possible fight with Deontay Wilder are his likeliest options, whereas the PFL are still waiting for him to make his debut in the Smart Cage since he signed with the promotion in May of 2023. Circling back to the fallout from UFC 299, Shavkat Rakhmonov reacts to UFC 299 call-out. Jack Della Maddalena announced his arrival into the UFC welterweight title conversation in emphatic fashion with a third-round knockout of Gilbert Burns. The Aussie came into this bout sitting 11th in the rankings and riding a 16-fight win streak. His victory over 4th-ranked Burns is exactly the kind of statement he would have been hoping for. The fight was very closely contested over the first 2 rounds, and Burns looked to be dominating the action on the ground coming down the final stretch in round 3. JDM created a scramble and managed to land a knee up the middle on Durinho's chin before finishing him with vicious ground and pound. In his post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, he came prepared with the name he wants to see on his next fight contract, that of Shavkat Rakhmonov.
There's some scary people in this division, but I'm the scariest, and Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think me and you could make a hell of a title eliminator. One of the best in the business, let's go.
Much like JDM, Rakhmonov is on an impressive winning streak and has taken out ranked opponents such as Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. The Kazakhstani took to social media to respond. He tweeted, "I respect your courage and confidence, Jack, but you will face the same fate as my previous opponents." Next up, we take a look at UFC fighter reveals sad news after fight. The fight of the night at UFC 299 between Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint-Denis will live long in the memory. The rising French star brought the fight to Poirier from the off and had the former interim champion on the ropes throughout the first round. He seemed to be dominating the grappling exchanges, and Poirier looked more than a little shell-shocked as he went back to his corner in between rounds. The tide turned in the second round as Poirier stunned the God of War with an uppercut and shortly afterwards with a straight left. Later in the round, a right hook put the Frenchman down again, and the Diamond got the finish via ground and pound. It seems medical issues may have contributed to BSD's downfall, as he underwent antibiotic treatment for an infection in the lead-up to the bout. He posted on Instagram via Google Translate, "Unfortunately, this evening I was not able to fully express myself. My body didn't respond after a week of antibiotics to fight an infection. Throughout, I was present, but my body was absent. It did not react as usual. I had only 1 round to give you." Some fans seemed less than convinced on social media. He wasn't gassed at all. This is excuse city. No, your performance was due to you getting knocked out by one of the top guys in the division. CTE kicking in real time. Next up, in a bizarre turn of events, Dana White gets exposed by UFC fighter. Former 135-pound champion Peter Yan returned to winning ways at UFC 299 with an impressive unanimous decision victory over Song Yadong, picking up a 29-28 scorecard from all three judges. During a difficult opening round, the Russian seemed to struggle to get to grips with the speed and the power of Yadong. In a post-fight interview backstage, Yan seemed to insinuate that the UFC tried to break him mentally after losing by decision to Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley during that run.
Don't see my fight with Aljamain, you don't see my fight with O'Malley. Brother, good game. They wanted broke my mentally.
When asked if he wanted to send a message to Dana White, Yan responded,
Dana, you know, 2 times, brother, you did bullshit for me.
It'll be interesting to see what the UFC will do next with Yan, with Merab Dvalishvili likely in line for a title shot and Aljamain Sterling seeking out new matchups at featherweight. Could we see Yan rematch with Cory Sandhagen, or perhaps take on defeated title challenger Marlon Vera? Let's turn our attention now to the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall responds to call-out. Curtis Blaydes upset the apple cart somewhat on the preliminary card at UFC 299 by viciously knocking out rising star Jailton Almeida early in the second round. The Brazilian seemed to be dominating proceedings up until that point, racking up 9 takedowns over the course of the first 5 minutes. With Almeida deep on a single leg attempt at the beginning of the second, Blaydes viciously pounded his opponent into unconsciousness with a succession of hammer fists. Razor is now 8-2 in his last 10 UFC appearances and took the opportunity afterwards to call for a rerun of his ill-fated matchup with Tom Aspinall in July 2022. Aspinall suffered a knee injury after just 15 seconds of that bout, and while it goes down on Blaydes' record as a TKO victory, he called for the opportunity to try and turn that win into a more legitimate one by facing Aspinall in a rematch. Blaydes told TNT Sports after his win in Miami,
"But we're going to scrap. He's very good, I'm very good. We'll see who wins. I think our styles match up very well. He's a very in and out type of guy. I'm a very in and out type of guy. I believe I'm the better grappler, but I know he's got some grappling also. It's going to be a hell of a fight. Like, he's real good."
The Englishman responded positively on social media, saying, "Don't gotta ask me twice, I'm in." Aspinall won the interim heavyweight title with a stunning first-round knockout over Sergey Pavlovich at UFC 295 last November, and has been campaigning hard for the opportunity to face John Jones in a heavyweight title unification bout since then. Finally, we switch back to the bantamweight division. Cory Sandhagen fires back at Umar Nurmagomedov. The unbeaten Umar Nurmagomedov took to social media in the aftermath of UFC 299 to offer his congratulations to Peter Yan. Nurmagomedov tweeted, "My congratulations, Peter, a good working victory. August 3, me against Peter, or me against Cory." The Dagestani sits in 10th place in the rankings, unbeaten at 17-0, while Sandhagen and Yan are ranked in 3rd and 4th place respectively. It's easy to see how much Nurmagomedov stands to gain from beating either, should he get the opportunity. While Umar has had a perfect start to his UFC career, going 5-0 so far, he has yet to claim a victory of name value in his UFC career. Sandhagen was scheduled to face him in the main event of UFC on ESPN 50 last August, but Nurmagomedov withdrew due to injury, and Sandman faced Rob Font instead. Sandhagen took to X shortly afterwards and seemed open to the idea, but on a different date than Nurmagomedov had in mind. He tweeted, "You want to call for higher opponents and choose your date? Come on, Umar, International Fight Week against me, brother." Sandhagen is on a 3-fight winning streak, picking up victories over Song Yadong, Chito Vera, and Rob Font, although a torn tricep in the Font win last August has seen him sitting on the sidelines while the rest of the division moves forward. The MMA community goes off on a referee after UFC 299. During the Gilbert Burns vs. Jack Della Maddalena fight, Jack hit Burns with some heavy blows, then continued to ground and pound him with elbows repeatedly while the referee took 15 seconds extra to intervene. Here's what the MMA community had to say to the referee. "Sheesh, is Gilbert Burns okay? That stoppage was so late. Gilbert Burns was half awake and took 5 elbows, and there's no stoppage? He took 15 more shots than he needed to. Gilbert Burns took all sorts of unnecessary damage. Late stoppage by the ref. UFC has to address this issue. Horrible stoppage on Gilbert Burns. This was brutal. Great win for Jack Della Maddalena. Late stoppage though. Horrible stoppage. Gilbert Burns was out for so long. Horrible late stoppage, but what a win for Jack Della Maddalena. It looked like Burns was just minutes away from clinching a win, but he swung the momentum with the getup and the big knee. Should have been ended long before it did end. I understand some of the refs let it keep going because fighters have come back and won, but damn, this was a terrible stoppage. The ref should have stopped it when he landed that clean shot to the face." Top comments. "I'd watch The Ultimate Fighter if the coaches were Strickland and Adesanya. Dustin was having a rough fight and he did look tired. Joe was just calling it like he saw it. Did anyone watch the fight or just listening to Joe and writing up responses? Dustin was getting his kicked in the first round and did look exhausted. They are live commentators, not fortune tellers and content creators posting after the fact. The thought of UFC without Joe just doesn't feel right. He's been involved in his sport longer than most of the MMA community been fans. Michael Chandler missed the party, bro. He came in the UFC chasing a basically retired McGregor further into retirement. Looking for that wave he could have made his own. Make sure to leave a comment and you might get featured in our next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any MMA news. Check out our video from yesterday if you missed it. See you tomorrow.